All right, guys. This is Mike Hudson. I'm glad to be here today. I'm with my co-host, as always, Greg Traynor with Accessible Hunter Podcast. Today is going to be a little different, guys. We brought our spouses along to do a little insight and our day to day, a little bit about just life in general and spinal cord injuries. So, Greg, how are you guys doing over there today, man?
Man, we're doing great. This is a good podcast. We finally got somebody that'll admit they know us and like us. And, we've actually met them in person once or twice. So this is a different ball game today, man. How you
Well,
guys doing?
we're doing okay, but I don't know if she would always say she likes me, but it is what it is. It's for better or worse. Now she's stuck.
Thank God we got him into a contract, Mike.
That's right. The only way you're getting out of here is with a tag on your toe. Anyway, how's the weather treating you guys in PA?
Pretty good. Not as good as yours. We can't put tomatoes out for another month. So, and that's how I
Wait,
gauge
did you
weather
say
is
a month?
yes, yes. Our last frost is in May. So everything that we do is either, inside or potatoes. Basically, we can grow potatoes right now. And that's how I gauge weather, what I can grow. So we're
Right.
about in the 50s during the day.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we
Yeah.
we hit 70, I think, today. It's really
Oh,
nice.
But
wow,
it's been
nice.
in the 50s this last week.
Well,
Uh,
it always freezes right before Easter. It doesn't matter when Easter is. The week before Easter, we hit the 30s at least one night. That's my whole life has been like that. And so earlier this week we hit 36 and everybody was worried about frost because we've already started pulling stuff out and starting to
Mhm.
get stuff going because we had a warm snap. And I mean, it was like 72, 73 and tons of sun. And so everything that had been closed up, like greenhouse kind of stuff, was frying. And so we had to kind of start moving stuff and then it went down and everybody was worried about frost. But I think we're on the home stretch now. That's the hope anyway. So we did all that today. Mike, I mean, let's be honest.
Here we go.
Here we go. I'm one of those people, I do yard work, so I'm not embarrassed when people drive by the house. I don't do yard work because I enjoy it. I do yard work because I grew up in a family and grandparents, mothers, aunts, cousins, where if people were coming by, you needed to make sure there was curb appeal to the house. So when we have weeds, I have to weed. When we moved here and there were holly bushes and I didn't like holly bushes, I had to get rid of those. I when my iris bed got weeds, I just pulled the whole thing up, pulled all the bulbs out, relayed everything and redid it so that when you walk around to the back of the house, there's this really, pretty bed now. So
Sounds like
today,
gardening by obligation or necessity.
yeah, yes. I mean,
Doesn't sound fun.
well, I mean, it looks nice, and everybody talks about how pretty it is when they come over, which was the whole point. Um, but given the choice to just sit out and smile across the way would be my preference.
Well, see, we let the bushes get so high that the neighbors can't see into the yard. That's our strategy on
I like the
gardening.
way you think, Greg. I like the way you think. But let me stop. I was going to introduce. This is my wife,
Oh,
Michael.
sorry.
Guys and girls, this is Greg and Beth. Just wanted to get. I did a terrible job at getting hosting on this beginning of this podcast, but yeah,
Well,
today's
Beth said
spouse
we were
day.
going to talk about gardening, so I just,
Off we
went
went.
off on that.
Off we went.
You
But
can never go
now
wrong.
you guys bought a farm, so like, do you have you got like apple trees and all that kind of stuff too? So you're having to do all that?
We do. So we have 24 blueberry bushes that are taller than me,
Wow.
and the same number of apple trees in an apple orchard. So, and we have
Couple peach trees and
yeah, the peach trees are in bloom, so I'm a little afraid because the weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun. I love the farm. It's the house is a total wreck, but I don't care. because I just love being outside and being there. So
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a really special piece of property to
It
us.
is.
We were looking for a place for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And you know, it's going to require a lot of work from our family, and it's just an exciting time for us. We've got tomato plants on the kitchen table ready to go in, and she's got grow lights for our peppers, and talking about putting in potato plants this weekend. So we really enjoy it. It gives us time in the outdoors, something that we, you know, usually do together. We do a lot of hunting. She does a lot of picture taking in the blind with me, but this is something we can do together that she enjoys.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Good.
it's accessible. So even though the house is 250 years old, there's one tiny threshold of about 5 inches that a small ramp gets Greg in, and then he can get throughout the whole downstairs and through the farm. So
Yeah.
it was like the perfect spot, that we
Greg,
didn't have to worry.
I just
Good.
saw you guys were also putting in new fish, right? You guys were helping resupply the streams, or
We have 400 yards of frontage of a trout stream.
Oh, wow.
So the Fish and Boat Commission stocks that stream, and I just said, let's go, let's help them. And so that's what we did. About 20 other volunteers, we got in our cars and we followed them down this stream and we threw buckets of fish in. It was fun.
It was the
awesome.
first time either of us ever did anything like that. And we got to meet some really interesting, just so friendly people. You know, fishermen are a lot like hunters. You know, they enjoy what they're doing. And we had some children there that were getting involved, you know, tossing fish with buckets and things. And just such a great day. And the weather cooperated. We'll definitely do that again with the game or the Fish and Boat Commission here in PA.
good.
That's
Good.
neat. Did they do anything like that on here?
Sometimes they'll do it in pond stocking, but we don't
Okay.
have as many streams or whatever that, they go back through and recycle. That's one of those things. My wife doesn't enjoy hunting as much, but she'll do it. It coincides a lot with what we do with spinal cord injuries. Our spouses. A lot of times people think they're our nurse or they're our full time. I don't want my wife to be my full time caregiver. Unfortunately, she is. But I think it takes away a little bit of our intimacy and relationship. So I try to kind of find a PCA or somebody that can help me with all the tasks that my wife doesn't want to do.
And most of the time, that's not even, the funny thing is most of the tasks I don't want to do aren't even his real personal care stuff. It's like painting the birdhouse a new color or hey, I need to repaint this thing over here, or hey, I need to I'm looking at building this rack to put stuff on, and I'm like, Bob, like, I don't want to build a rack. Like, what?
It's not the care. It's never been the care. It's not
It's
the
not
problem.
the actual day-to-day care that bothers me. It's all this random stuff that comes out of nowhere that I'm like, what's the purpose what's the real purpose in doing this? Because that is
2 a.m. 2 a.m. It sounded good.
I know when I wake up in the morning and he's already awake and my alarm goes off and he's like, good morning. I'm like, oh no, he's been up too long.
Brother, we are cut from the same
he now
cloth.
has this list that he's gonna say, hey, so I got this idea, and I'm gonna be like, sometimes I feel like my grandmother, and I say, oh, isn't that nice? Like, I don't even know, I don't know what to say because I'm like, oh, okay.
But Mike, in your defense, you and I have been awake for 4 hours already thinking about this great plan.
Right.
We just got to spring it on them as soon as the alarm goes off. Because
hey, I've been ready to go. I've been chomping at the bit to get this thing done. I just need some able-bodied hands to jump in and assist.
Yeah, and he knows when I say, okay, before I'm gonna go put some clothes on and get a cup of coffee, and then you can talk to me. But no, I don't want to do that right now. I want to actually be able to get out of the bed before I start doing this. So
That's funny.
yeah, I think that's the hardest part. One of the questions I hate the most, or statements I hate the most is, well, I don't know how you do it. How do what? Well, I mean, he's in a chair. And I mean, what do you want me to say? For a while, I was a little bit jaded, and I would say, "Well, your husband's ugly. What's the difference?" Or, I would say things like, "Well, now you know what our problem is. So if you want to tell me where your problems stem from, maybe I can help you." But now I just kind of say things like, "Same way you do it. If you're married, same way you do it. And if you're not married, I get it because marriage is a whole different ball game. You know, I was single 37 years before we got married. So, you know, people who generally are like, I don't know how you're married. And it's not, or our good friends who say, I don't know how you're married to that guy, you know, and it's
That makes sense.
Yeah, those
It's not the chair,
Right,
it's the guy.
it's the
I
guy.
get that.
That's when you know they're a good friend.
Right,
Right.
because they get it. But I really wish people would take a minute to think about, you know, the things. I have friends whose husbands do crazy stuff all the time too. And I think to myself, you know, at least I can kind of contain Mike sometimes because he does at least have to get my help to do some of it versus going out on this wild hair and I come home and it's already done and I walk in and I'm like, oh, so I see what you did today. I mean, like
But people automatically assume the wheelchair is baggage, and that's not the case, you know?
No, and I've even started kidding on some people when they're like, so you knew he was in a chair? And I say, yeah, but I wanted good parking, so I married it. I wanted the good seats at the arena for the cheaper price. Like, it's great.
Wanted to get on airplanes first. Woohoo!
Yeah.
First
I
on,
wanted the
last
bigger
off.
bathroom on the cruise ship. Like that was my goal. You know, stuff like that. But to me, Mike is who he is because he's in this chair. I mean, I knew Mike in high school, and the Mike today is a guy that I love and want to spend the rest of my life with, and I enjoy being with, and I do things that I wouldn't normally do, like go hunting. And I wouldn't have done that for the guy I knew before because I didn't like him at all. And so
The true test of a relationship is go out to Illinois and spend about 14 or 15 hours staring at a cornfield in like 13-degree temperatures and still be laughing, still be having a good time all day long with the person that you're in that ground blind with.
Right.
And if you can do that, you got a best friend and somebody you want to spend the rest of your life with.
Beth, you're my hero. I don't know that I could have done that.
I don't know that Michael would have done good in that situation.
I even took a nap that day. It was like I found a spot, the sun came out. I took a nap right next to him. But so yeah, that was a while ago. Now I don't think either of us are up to that.
We're not quite that dedicated anymore to hunting, but you know, spending time with your best friend. I mean, there's nobody else I would rather want to tell a story to or tell them about my day or what have you. Everything is magnified with a spinal cord injury. You know, we have good days, we have bad days. There's positives to being married. There's also some penalties financially for being married.
Absolutely.
And I don't think a lot of people realize that.
No.
Maybe somebody wants to talk a little bit about that.
You know, that's the kicker is all too often, you know, I don't know about PA, but in South Carolina, everybody around us can get paid as a caregiver except for our spouse.
Same.
And that's terrible. I mean, she is my caregiver, good, bad, or indifferent, but why is she the only one not being able to be compensated? Because she is unfortunately stuck with me. I don't want to say it that in the terms of that, but there are days that she needs to go into the office that she has to come back to assist that penalizes her in the corporate realm. And it makes it very difficult.
And in most cases, if you make enough money to have another caregiver, then you make too much money to get assistance to pay for the caregiver. And the issue with that is, you know, you can't just do it. There's not a sliding scale because that was one of the things I'd looked into before we got married. You know, well, we can pay for this, but we can't pay for that. So can we just get assistance for this? We don't need it for that. We just need it for this. And the answer is no. Matter of fact, we actually even talked about, talking to attorneys about a tort case and looking at it as, religious discrimination. Because we believed, based on our religion, that we needed to be married and to live together in holy matrimony, if you will. And yet the state penalized us, whereas they did not penalize people who did not have the same religious beliefs. We went pretty far down that road. One of my cousins is an attorney, and he was like, "Oh, that's really cool." And so we talked to him for a while about it, and he said, "You're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a hard time proving that." I mean, you can prove it, but it's not going to get the traction that, you want it to get. So, and then we even looked at doing a religious ceremony where we didn't actually turn in our marriage license to the state, that we just had a symbolic, joining through that. We found out in the state of South Carolina that any minister that assisted us in that would no longer be able to be in ministry if they did not turn in the marriage license.
Wow.
So there were a lot of different things we looked at before we got married, specifically because of the financial issues that arise. And so I feel for people. I mean, we knew coming into it. I mean, we were able to do a lot of research because Mike had already been in the chair for a long time. So we knew what we were getting into. Like we did a lot of research. But for people who get married and then one spouse has an injury that occurs and you're not already versed in what's getting ready to happen to you financially, the stress of that on a marriage has to be absolutely just devastating, because it is such a hold you down thing. The state tries very hard to make sure you have nothing before they're willing to help. And yet, once you do get to nothing, the help that they give, some of it's good and some of it's just so subpar that it's not what you're looking for the person that you love.
Do you guys see it as more, the stuff we face a lot of times is more debilitating than the actual injury? Fighting the state on marriage and fighting to get wheelchair components and, fighting fiscal issues, even though we're educated, you can't use the education to get financial gains because, that's then no longer are you disabled. I told one of my bosses one time, I should have just had an extra zero added to my paycheck, and I guess my disability would have went away. And so it's terrible to say it that way, but it's the stuff we fight seems more debilitating than the actual traumatic injury that put me in the chair.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that we have to always consider too, Mike, is how much legality marriage brings to the table. Before, if you're not married and you get hospitalized, they can't make any decisions for you. You're penalized in that regard. There's just so much that's against people with disabilities getting married. I mean, I personally think it's worth it, but
we do too.
Yeah.
I got a prize, she got a rock. So
right. She got the roll into this deal, but it is what it is now. I got you, sucker. But it's sad to say, Greg, that's one of the things I worry about with aging with a spinal cord injury is what's going to happen in my demise. Is the state going to come back and seek retribution some kind of way and say, you've had assistance in this or this over time, you owe us back. And it's one of those things. It's not like you can send soup back in a kitchen, it is what it is. And I just don't want her to be further penalized in that realm, if that makes sense.
And Beth, I don't know how you feel about this, but there are days where I think to myself, I cannot be hurt. I cannot be sick today. I cannot, it doesn't matter. I twisted my ankle. We've got to get these things done. It doesn't matter that I'm hacking up along with, whatever. And then, with the pandemic having come through, I was still having to go to work every day. And so it was like, what am I bringing home that he's not going to be able to fight? And so when I look at that, in addition to being hemmed in with some of the financial things, it's kind of like, okay, if I get sick or I get hurt, what are we going to do? Because so much of this falls on, and it would be even if we weren't married, if we were just in
In
the
a
same house
relationship,
or the
right.
same relationship, the way that everything is set up, it's so difficult to be able to have everything in place as I age, what's going to happen to me? Because, a lot of times married couples, they make enough money or they do enough things that they're thinking long term into possibly having a assisted
Save,
living
retire,
and thing
right.
kind of thing. But my version of assisted living at 75 is going to be very different than his version of assisted living at 75. And we're not going to be able to have enough money in the bank to do both. And
Right.
so what are we going to do? And I think that's where the marriage penalty comes into play the most, is when when the able-bodied spouse is not at prime, what happens?
Right.
It's
That's a very real reality for me right now. I twisted my knee a few months ago, and when it happened, it happened at night, and Greg was in his chair and needed to get into bed. And one way or the other, he was getting into bed.
mm-hmm.
So, we made it work. And for the next probably month, it was difficult, but it was still on me. And he tried to get someone to come and, went through all the hoops and couldn't do it. There was just nobody available. So yeah, we deal with that all the time. I tell him, I'm not getting you should have picked a younger model. As I'm nearing retirement in a few years, but you got what you got. Sorry.
It's definitely a huge concern. I felt absolutely awful about the whole situation. She's balancing on one leg, putting me in bed. I know I'm causing my wife pain,
Right.
physical pain,
Right.
and there's just no other way of doing it. And as she said, we've tried to get attendant care. We've tried to go through a lot of different agencies. And, when you're talking about having somebody come in at $30 an hour and a 4-hour
Right.
minimum, that's $120 just to get you in the chair in the morning,
Right.
and then another $120 in the evening. How can you possibly afford that?
You can't. I did all that because I'm in finance. I did all that math before we ever got married. And at the time, I had figured out that someone would have to make around between $200,000 and $250,000 a year just to be able to pay the attendant care necessary and still, pay the taxes for that tax bracket and all that kind of stuff. That wasn't
That's
your take
just
home
to
pay.
be
That was your
in
gross
your
pay.
chair.
But that was to be in your chair and out of your chair, including all of the supplemental Medicare policies through disability and all that kind of stuff, and all the co-pays, the potential co-pays. And I told Mike, I said, that is not feasibly possible to be able to do that. And so anybody, if you're above the poverty line, but you're below that 250,
It's a tough road to hoe. You got to try to figure that out. But bigger than that, no, now we're having to open our home to a stranger, open your everyday stuff up. So now they're privy to marital discussions and that kind of thing. And then you have to assume that my spouse is taken care of. I'm opening up our house to somebody coming in. I have to hope is not some serial killer, and I just expose my wife to an issue. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
so it's terrifying when you think about all the things we have to jump through just to get up and out. And I don't want to expose my wife to a whole bunch of negative. She's already got this to deal with. So, it just makes it difficult.
Well, Mike, as much as we've been talking up marriage, I mean, we're probably just encouraging, thousands upon thousands of people to go to the altar this summer.
Well, that's the kicker, Greg. you hit the nail on the head that we're doing a lot of verbal damage, but you can see we got two spouses that are sitting there smiling, carrying on. The biggest kicker is, man, marriage is what you make of it, and doesn't matter about the chair. You know, the biggest thing is we're all going to bring drama to the table. I wouldn't want to do this with anybody else. And
That's the bottom line, Mike. And we talk about this all the time, that sooner or later we're all going to age into disability.
right.
You and I experienced it much younger in life, but everybody is headed towards, some type of dependence on other people.
Sure.
And if you're
And-
not, you're gonna be dead. I mean, there,
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we get really accustomed to making do, to making different plans, to figuring things out. Now I'm sure every marriage does that. You
Sure.
have to pick up the kids and you're at work, you find a way for somebody else to do it.
yeah.
It's just that I don't have the same resources or the same able-bodied ability that maybe somebody else does,
Sure.
but we try to complement each other and assist each other in other ways.
Right.
If I can do anything in this world for my wife, I'm going to do it.
Right.
It's not saying we always see eye to eye, and this is some rosy pie in the sky relationship. We have issues just like everyone else,
Sure.
but we find a way to make things happen.
We were doing a study one time, and I'm probably gonna get in trouble here in a
I
minute.
know where he's going.
Yeah. So we were doing these group studies, and I just told him, I said, we're not in a traditional marriage. And man, when I said that, I guess everybody thought I was gonna say we're swingers or something, And I said, listen, I go to bed every night with my wife, the same time she does, whether I'm tired or not. Because if I go to transfer in the bed, all I'm doing is waking her up. Now she's ticked off. It's just easier for me to go and get in the bed and Skype or do whatever I'm gonna do. But if I come bumping in the bed later at night, I'm just gonna wake her up. Now she's ticked off, and we got a whole nother scenario. But at the same token, if we go to bed, we've got issues. I'm gonna tell her, hey, I'm transferring out of this bed and I'm ticked off. You're just gonna have to give me 5 minutes. But when I go out of here, I'm still slamming this door shut. You don't forget now, you may have to help me transfer, but I'm still ticked off at you.
I'm going to hug you to get into bed, but I don't mean it.
Right. After you put me into bed, you just remember I'm bad.
Mike, I thought we were the only ones.
No.
No.
I'm gonna finish mansplaining this after we get to bed.
Yeah, Mike knows I'm upset when we're doing all this stuff to get in the bed and I don't say a word. I'm just like,
Same, guilty.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a talker, so he knows.
That's usually I'm the yeller, so when it's quiet, I'm out.
Well, I'm not saying we don't deserve it, Mike. Sometimes we're just stupid men.
Well,
But we get our point in.
Well, I've said this before on podcasts with you, brother. A lot of times you'll look around and it's guys in wheelchairs because we do stupid stuff. It is what it is. It doesn't happen and it doesn't change just because you say I do. I'm still the stupid, ignorant guy that does dumb junk. My wife just usually is the one that gets to chew me out about it.
I would hope that anybody who was in a relationship that loved somebody enough, if you love somebody enough, the chair is not the issue here. The reality, I hear people a lot of times say, well, they said it was too hard and so they left. There's something in me that says that you didn't love that person enough to walk through it. Because the reality of the situation for me is this. I never said to the Lord when I wanted a husband, hey, I want him to be able to walk. Never thought to say that. But I said, I want him to make me laugh. I said, I want him to love me. I want him to take care of me to the best of his ability. Those were and I really even told him I didn't want a brown-eyed man. Never occurred to me to tell him, hey, I need him standing up walking. So apparently that when you really find somebody that you connect with, that you want to spend the rest of your life with, how they move around is the least of the issues that you should face. And I do understand when it's a traumatic injury and all of life changes and it's very difficult and it's not what you thought you signed up for. But if you decided to have 2 children and you end up with 3, that's not what you signed up for either. If one spouse ends up with cancer, it's not what you signed up for either. If one of your spouses ends up having your parents move in with you at one point, that wasn't what you signed up for either. So you have to decide, do you really love this life and love this person enough? And for us, the answer was yes, because Mike was in the chair long before we decided to get married. But I loved Mike. I mean, one of our first fights was about how tall he was, because he kept telling me he was 3'7", and I'm like, no, you're not. Like, I'm looking at you. You're not an Oompa Loompa. Like, you're almost 6 feet tall. And he's like, no, I'm not. And I'm like, you have to be. You wear a 42 long coat. No 3'7" man wears a 42 coat and wears 32 long pants. You're not 7 inches from your waist to the top of your head. Like, that's not what this is. And so finally he said something about, I am, and I can prove it if I roll over here, and da-da-da. And I said, well, I'm just going to tell you, if you ever want to be laying in the bed with me, I guarantee you I'm going to prove you're not 3'7", because you're longer than I am, and I'm 5'2". And at that point, he was like, I see where this is going, and I think it's best if we just change the subject. So I think the whole point is, the chair is not the detriment, the attitude is. Everybody's got an obstacle. I mean, if you ask me what was worse, bush hogging the 13.5 acres out here in July, or getting him up every day for a week, I'm going to choose getting him up every day for a week as the better of those 2 options. Because I don't, to me, there's some things I don't like to do, and getting him up in the morning is not a big deal. For us, it just means that we don't usually eat breakfast with people at 7:30. If you want to see us, you're not seeing us till 9:30 or 10 o'clock. I'm just gonna,
Or we're up at 3 a.m.
or we're up at 3 a.m.
Right.
and then we'll meet you by 5 or 6. But we only do that for hunting and sunrise once a year, maybe. And that's it. But now, if you want to hang with us at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, we're probably your people, because he's probably still up, and he's more than happy to, wake me up to tell me something if he thinks it's important. But I think people get really, really focused on the chair, and they get really, really focused on spouse as caregiver instead of spouse as spouse, where caregiver just kind of happens to be what we end up having to do. Because we don't have kids together. So, in the mornings, we're not trying to get kids up, kids fed, kids out to school. We're just getting ourselves up, doing our thing, and moving on. And so I think that's, we enjoy being together. And if you find somebody that you enjoy being with, the chair shouldn't be an issue, because it just is what it is. And either you love that person enough, or you don't. And if you don't, be honest and move on.
Yeah.
But I don't understand the whole over the chair. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately for Beth, she has to run the brush hog and get me up both.
But I do
Yeah,
like
me too.
I
Mine
do
too.
like to ride the tractor, though. I do.
I
I have
do.
to tell you, I love it. I do. There's
Yeah.
nothing better or meditative than just putting on the headphones and cutting grass for a couple of hours at the farm. I love it.
I
know,
used
it's
to
weird.
do that, but he would text me, hey,
Oh.
you're driving too fast. Hey, you took that corner wrong. Hey, did you realize the PTO is too low? And I'm like, me and John Denver were having a good time.
Well, Beth, I'll be honest, I've been trying to get Greg down here for a while. So when you guys come to visit, the house is accessible. We've got an extra bedroom and I've got keys to the tractor. You're more than welcome to ride.
To get her fix in for cutting grass.
That's right.
Well,
That's right.
brother, we definitely want to get down and see both of you. We've been talking really seriously about traveling down and seeing you. And I've been dealing with some health issues with the pressure sore that makes it a little bit difficult to travel.
Sure.
But we would love to come down and spend some time with you. And I know you and I have some ideas about some upcoming events that we want to get to and do a little bit of shooting together and stuff. And
Absolutely.
I just want to thank you both for everything you do, and such good friends to Beth and I. I know we talked a lot today and probably made a lot of people think about some things, but hopefully we made some people laugh and realize that, a relationship's not about the chair, that it's about the love that we feel for each other and, going through life just like everybody else, good days and bad days. And I always say I'm delightful. I don't know what she's talking about. So if she says anything different, Mike, you take up for me.
Hey man, I got you covered, brother. And like I said, we're gonna get together. You guys are not that far apart. We've been talking about coming up to Hershey and some other stuff. I'm a fat
be
guy.
fun.
I need my chocolate fix. And you guys
Hershey's
just have a
fun.
whole town named after it. So we're gonna make that happen. But I'm in the same boat you are, Greg, man. I think I'm delightful. Everybody else likes me. So, maybe that's her issue, not mine. No. But no, man, I'm with you, buddy. I really think that, we need to have more of these podcasts that are associated with just talking about life after an injury, but let's start focusing on the person, not the chair so much. Empathy goes a long way, and that's not just a talking point, I think, between me and you and being able to share. Beth, I want to thank you really for taking the time to come on with us and just share a little bit. I know we probably horned in and took most of the conversation today, but hopefully we can do it again. And I just appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, it was great being here.
Yes, ma'am. And putting up with that knucklehead, thank you. I'm sure that's a lot of work. And if there's a badge to be given, you got one coming.
It goes both ways, believe me.
Trust me, I understand.
But no, and I know, Beth, I know you probably feel the same way. If there anybody who listens to this podcast that has any questions about how we deal with things, I'm more than happy to really be open and honest with anybody who really wants to know and really wants to live a life, like Greg said, with your best friend and sharing life with somebody that you want to be around on a regular basis all the time. And, it's not easy, but no marriage worth it is. And so, matter of fact, no relationship worth it is. And so you've got to decide, is it worth it? And the answer in my case is most assuredly yes. And Beth, obviously in your case too. And I think it also has allowed us to meet a lot of really neat people. I mean, we'd have never met you guys. And, I love hearing about all the things that you're doing and like with the farm and knowing you guys have, wow, massive blueberry bushes and you're doing all this stuff that's so exciting. And it allows everybody else to take a look and say, this life is awesome. This life is great. We can do so much. We just have to get up every day and do it, decide to do it, figure out a way to do it and get after it. And, I think until more people really start talking about how great this life is, regardless of chair or anything else, we're not going to prove to the world that we're just like everybody else. And we've got to do that. We've got to talk about how great it is. We've got to show how great it is. And we've just got to be out there being great examples of what you can do when you decide to do it.
Yep, I agree.
You want to talk a little bit about how great I am, Beth, here? Or is it at the end of the show?
I think that's a note we need to end on right there.
Yeah, I thought I was going to get a plug in there, Mike, but I might have been pushing my luck too much.
Probably so. I can't defend you on that one, buddy.
Well, guys, thank you so much. I hope you have a great evening, a great weekend. Happy Easter to you both. And brother, we'll be talking soon.
Yeah. Sounds good, man. Hey, you let me know what we can do, man. We love y'all.
Bye,
Love you
guys.
too.
Have a
All right,
great
buddy.
day.
Y'all have a good night.
Bye.